I still remember the exact moment when my entire world fell apart. Not with a loud crash, but with a soft notification, a quiet little ping from my husband's phone while he was in the shower. I wasn't the kind of wife who checked James' phone. 15 years of marriage had created what I believed was unbreakable trust. But that evening something felt different. James had been acting distant for months, working late, attending weekend business meetings, suddenly caring more about his appearance. All the typical signs I had refused to notice. His phone lit up on the dresser in our bedroom. A text preview from his assistant appeared. Reservation confirmed at Arya for Friday 8 p.m. She'll be thrilled with the private booth. I knew I shouldn't unlock his phone. But something deep inside pushed me to do it. That gut feeling that tells you your life is about to change forever. My fingers moved on their own, typing in his passcode, our anniversary date. Ironically, what I discovered wasn't just a dinner plan. It was an entirely hidden life. There were messages, pictures, and plans for the future. Her name was Claire. She worked in the marketing department at his law firm. Younger, of course. Beautiful, naturally. And married too. I sat there, holding his phone, struggling to breathe. 15 years of marriage, our lovely home, mutual friends, shared dreams, suddenly felt like they were built on sand. "Victoria, have you seen my blue tie?" James called from the bathroom. His voice sounding so normal, so casual. I had a reservation at Arya on Friday night if that worked for him. He replied within hours. Polite, interested, and available. He had no idea his wife would be at the same restaurant that night, sitting close to my husband in a private booth just one table away. As I closed my laptop, I felt something shift inside me. The shock was fading, replaced by something cold, focused, and steady. For 15 years, I had been the perfect wife, supportive, understanding, and patient. I had built my life around our relationship, while James had built his around secrets. Friday night would change everything for all of us. The 3 days before Friday felt like the longest of my life. I moved like a shadow in my own home, observing James through new eyes. How had I missed so many signs? The way he checked his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. The mysterious phone calls in another room. The subtle changes in his cologne and clothing. "I've got that client dinner Friday night," he said casually during breakfast on Thursday. "Don't wait up. These things usually run late." I nodded, calmly spreading butter on my toast. "The big corporate merger." "Exactly," he replied, clearly relieved by how easily I accepted his excuse. "Probably boring business talk all night." "I might go out too," I offered. A colleague suggested we catch up. James barely noticed, already absorbed in his phone. "That's nice, honey." 15 years of marriage, and he couldn't even pretend to care about my life for 30 seconds. Had it always been like this? Or had I been so focused on keeping up our perfect image that I had ignored his indifference? That evening, I found myself standing in our walk-in closet, looking at my reflection. 42, I still looked good. My dark hair had just a few strands of gray. My figure stayed slim thanks to years of regular exercise. But I wasn't Claire, 28 years old, naturally beautiful, and effortlessly confident. I touched the fine lines near my eyes and wondered, was this the reason James had cheated? Well, I stopped that thought immediately. This wasn't about me getting older or not being good enough. This was about James. His selfish choices, his sense of entitlement, and his complete disregard for our wedding vows. I had given him everything. I supported his career while building my own. I moved 3 times for his promotions. I stood by his side during his father's long illness. I forgave the little betrayals that now seemed like clear warning signs. The late nights, the forgotten anniversaries, the emotional distance when I needed him the most. Friday arrived with a strange sense of calm. I dressed carefully for my business dinner. A navy blue sheath dress. Professional but flattering. Pearl earrings James had given me on our 10th anniversary. And the red-soled heels I rarely wore because James once said they made me look like I was trying too hard. I left work early to get my hair done. Just a small change. Softer waves framing my face. The stylist mentioned how calm I looked. If only she knew the storm I was hiding inside. At home, I packed a small overnight bag and placed it in the trunk of my car. No matter what happened that night, I wasn't going to sleep under the same roof as James. Then I drove to Arya, arriving 30 minutes before my reservation. The maitre d' recognized me from our phone conversation. With a quiet, knowing smile, he showed me the table layout. My table was perfectly positioned with a clear view of the private booth where James would be sitting with Claire. From where they were seated, they wouldn't easily notice me, unless they happened to glance around the restaurant. Your guest has already called to confirm he's on his way, the maitre d' informed me. I settled at the bar with a martini in hand, keeping my eyes fixed on the entrance like a hawk. James arrived first, 15 minutes early. His nervous energy visible in every move he made. He looked sharp in his best suit, the one I had helped him pick for important client meetings. He was guided to the private booth. 10 minutes later she arrived. Claire was exactly what I expected and feared. Young, stunning, confident. She wore a fitted red dress and walked with the kind of assurance that comes from never questioning your place in the world. James stood when she approached, and his expression changed, filled with admiration I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Something broke inside me as I watched him take her hands and lean in for a slow, affectionate kiss. It wasn't just the cheating, it was the happiness on his face. The contentment. He looked alive in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. Victoria Hamilton. I turned and saw Michael Donovan standing beside me. He looked to be in his early 40s, with classic, grounded good looks. Dark hair touched with gray at the sides, kind eyes, and a sincere smile. "Mr. Donovan," I said, offering my hand. "Thank you so much for agreeing to meet on such short notice." "Please call me Michael," he said warmly, shaking my hand with a firm grip. "The pleasure is mine. Your idea for the lecture series is quite interesting." If only he knew. The maitre d' returned and led us to our table, the one with the perfect view of James and Claire, now sitting close together in their private booth, their hands gently intertwined on the table. As we sat down, I did my best to focus on Michael and keep up the appearance of a professional dinner. But my eyes kept drifting toward the booth, where James was now pouring champagne and leaning in to whisper something that made Claire laugh without a care in the world. "So, tell me about this executive series," Michael said, unfolding his napkin. "The intersection between architecture and economics sounds fascinating." I forced my focus back to him and launched into a well-practiced explanation about interdisciplinary education. All the while, out of the corner of my eye, I saw James rest his hand on Claire's bare knee under the table. "Victoria." Michael's voice pulled me back. "Are you all right? You seem a little—" "I'm fine," I said quickly, reaching for my glass of water. "Just a bit tired. The end of semester stress." Michael nodded with understanding, then started sharing details about a new project, a sustainable apartment complex downtown. He was passionate, intelligent, and completely unaware that his wife sat just 20 feet away, now feeding my husband a bite of her appetizer. "I've been talking too much," he said with a humble smile. "Tell me about your work." As I began explaining my research, I noticed Claire leave the table, probably heading to the restroom. This was my chance. "Would you excuse me for a moment?" "Yes." Michael stood politely as I rose. I didn't have a clear plan, but my steps led me straight into Claire's path as she returned from the ladies' room. The moment our eyes met, recognition flickered across her face. She had clearly seen photos of me at James's office. "You're James's wife," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "And you're Michael's," I replied, glancing toward our table where Michael sat, unaware. The color drained from her flawless face. Looking back now, I realized I had been preparing for this confrontation from the moment I saw that message on James's phone. But what happened next wasn't something I had rehearsed. "Please," Claire whispered, her eyes flicking nervously between me and Michael. "Not here." "Why not here?" asked my voice steady, Isn't this the perfect place? A beautiful restaurant, soft lighting, a romantic setting. You've certainly been enjoying it. Claire's carefully manicured hand reached out and grabbed my arm. Victoria, I can explain. Can you? I gently pulled my arm away. Can you explain why you're having an affair with my husband? Can you explain why you're betraying the man over there who has no idea what's going on? Tears filled her eyes. It's complicated. It always is, isn't it? I replied with a quiet, sad smile. Love, marriage, loyalty, such complicated things. Behind Claire, I saw James had noticed us. The color had left his face. He had half risen from the booth, unsure whether to come over or stay seated. What do you want? Claire asked, her voice shaking. That question caught me off guard. What did I want? Revenge. Justice. I had wanted to hurt them as deeply as they had hurt me. But what I truly wanted, I realized, was honesty. Something that had been missing from my marriage far longer than I cared to admit. I want the truth, I said finally. I glanced back at Michael, who was now watching us with a confused look. Your husband seems like a good man, I said quietly to Claire. Does he deserve this? Claire's expression crumpled as tears filled her eyes. No, she whispered. He doesn't. Neither did I replied softly. At that moment, James appeared behind Claire. His face was pale, filled with panic. Victoria, what are you doing here? He asked. Having dinner, I replied calmly. Just like you. This isn't, he started. What it looks like. I finished for him. James, please. We're long past that excuse. Michael approached us then, confusion clearly written on his face. Victoria, is everything okay? Do you know these people? He asked gently. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Time stood still. James looked at me, silently pleading. Claire stood motionless, terrified. In that moment I held all the power to cause a scene, to expose them in public, to destroy the image they had so carefully built. But something had shifted inside me over the past few days. I had come to understand that the most powerful response wasn't an emotional outburst. It was control. It was clarity. Michael, I said evenly, I'd like you to meet my husband, James Hamilton. Michael's confusion deepened. Then his eyes turned to Claire, who stood beside James, pale and shaking. And I believe you already know Claire, I added gently. Realization slowly spread across Michael's face. The confusion faded, replaced by disbelief. And then heartbreak. Claire, he said, his voice catching on her name. She couldn't even look at him. Michael, she began, but her voice faded. How long? He asked, his tone hollow. No one answered. The silence was loud enough. I had imagined this moment so many times, believing I would feel some sense of satisfaction from exposing them, from tearing apart their little secret. But instead I felt only sadness. A deep, aching sadness watching Michael's pain. A reflection of my own. Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private, I suggested, noticing the curious glances from nearby diners. James finally found his voice. Victoria, listen. We need to talk about this. We certainly do, I replied. But not here, and not just the two of us. Just then the maitre d' approached, clearly sensing the tension in the air. Is everything all right with your dining experience? He asked with polite concern. I gave him a calm smile. Actually, there's been an unexpected change of plans. Would it be possible to combine our reservations? It seems we need a table for 4. He glanced between the 4 of us, professional enough not to show any reaction to the uncomfortable tension. Of course, madam. Right this way. He led us to a private dining room, tucked away from the main restaurant, and quickly arranged a table for 4. I'll give you some time with the menus, he said, backing out and closing the door quietly behind him. We sat in strained silence. James and Claire took one side of the table, Michael and I sat opposite them. The division was painfully symbolic, and not lost on anyone. How did you find out? James asked me after a long pause. Does it matter? I replied. I suppose not, he said softly. Michael still hadn't spoken. His eyes were locked on Claire. When he finally did speak, his voice was tight. Were you ever going to tell me? Claire's mascara had smudged into dark streaks down her cheeks. I don't know, she whispered. That's the problem with affairs, I said quietly. They live in a fantasy, where no one has to make decisions or face consequences. Reality only shows up when it's already too late. James turned to me, studying my face. You're being very calm about this. What did you expect, James? Yes. That I'd throw a drink in your face. 'Cause a scene. Give you the satisfaction of calling me irrational or unstable. To his credit, he looked ashamed. I've had 3 days to process this, I continued. 3 days of looking back at our 15 years together, tracing every moment where you chose lies over honesty. 3 days. Claire suddenly looked up, startled. You've known for 3 days. You planned all of this ambush. I turned to face her. Yes. You know what's interesting, said my voice steady. In those 3 days, neither of you noticed a thing. James, you came home every night, kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day without really listening, just like always. You looked me in the eyes and told me about your client dinner tonight without the slightest hint of guilt. I didn't want to hurt you, James said quietly. Michael let out a bitter laugh. That's rich. You didn't want to hurt her. While you were sleeping with my wife. Just then, the waiter knocked and stepped in with water and a basket of bread. He set them down quickly and left, clearly sensing the tension in the room. I had planned everything with precision, booked the table, invited Michael, timed it all perfectly. But what I hadn't prepared for was the heaviness of the moment itself, the crushing weight of the truth. The realization that my marriage had been a hollow shell for far longer than I had allowed myself to believe. What happens now? Claire asked, her voice small and uncertain. I reached into my purse and pulled out a hotel room key. I booked a room across the street for myself, I said. I won't be sleeping in our bed tonight, James. He looked stunned. Victoria, no. I raised my hand to stop him. I'm not finished. For 15 years, I've been the supportive wife, the understanding partner. I adjusted my career for your promotions. I looked the other way when you were absent. I believed every excuse. That ends tonight. I placed the room key on the table and stood. Michael, I said gently, I'm truly sorry you had to find out this way. You deserve better. He nodded silently, still trying to absorb the betrayal. James, I continued, I'll be at my sister's for the weekend. When I return Monday, I expect you to be gone. Take what you need. We'll sort out the rest later. You're throwing me out, he asked, stunned. No, James, I said calmly. You threw yourself out the moment you decided our vows didn't matter anymore. I turned to Claire. He's yours now. No more secrets. No more excitement of forbidden moments. Just the reality of a man who walks away from his commitments when they stop serving him. I turned toward the door. My hand touched the handle, then I paused. Oh, and dinner's on James's corporate card, I said. You both seem familiar with that arrangement. Then I walked out of Arya with my head held high. I passed the valet line and crossed the street to the Grand Meridian Hotel. I'd booked a luxury room with a view of the city skyline, my first real act of self-care in years. Only when I reached the quiet of that room did I let go. Not with quiet tears, but with deep, shaking sobs that seemed to tear through me. I cried for the marriage I thought I had. For the 15 years now stained with betrayal. For the future I had imagined with a man who had been living a double life. I didn't know how long I sat on the floor, my back against the bed, letting years of suppressed pain pour out. When the storm of emotion finally passed, I felt empty, but strangely clearer. A soft knock on the door startled me. Expecting it to be James, I got up, ready to tell him to leave. But when I looked through the peephole, I saw Michael Donovan standing there. He looked as shattered as I felt. I opened the door just a crack. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. I couldn't go home. I didn't know where else to go." I hesitated, then opened the door wider. After what we'd been through tonight, formal boundaries no longer seemed to matter. "How did you know where to find me?" I asked. "You mentioned crossing the street," he said with a shrug. "There was only one hotel. I asked the front desk if a Victoria Hamilton had checked in." "They just told you?" I asked, surprised. "I may have implied I was your husband," he admitted. "Sorry. Under different circumstances I might have been concerned. But tonight we were just two people bonded by shared betrayal." "Come in," I said. "I look like a mess." I gestured to my tear-stained face. "Join the club," he replied with a tired smile, his own eyes red from crying. We sat in the two armchairs by the window, looking out at the city lights in silence. "Did you know?" he finally asked. "Before the text, I mean. Did you suspect?" Thought about it. Part of me did. James had grown distant. But I didn't want to believe it. Michael nodded slowly. "Claire's been working late for months, taking weekend girls' trips. I trusted her completely. That's what makes it so effective," I said softly. "They use our trust against us." "What are you going to do now?" he asked. I took a deep breath. Exactly what I said earlier. I'm not taking him back. Just like that. After 15 years. 15 years is exactly why, I replied. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. A long-term betrayal. And from the messages I saw, it's been going on for almost a year. Michael winced. "A year? God. What about you?" asked gently. He ran his hands through his hair. "I don't know. We've been married 7 years. No kids, thankfully. But still. You don't have to decide tonight." "No," he said. "But I know one thing, I can't unsee what I saw." The way she looked at him. His voice broke. Without thinking, I reached out and took his hand. It wasn't romantic. It was just one human connecting with another in shared pain. Around midnight, Michael left for his own hotel room. We had talked for hours, not just about Claire and James but about our lives, our careers, our dreams. Two strangers finding comfort in shared heartache. The next morning, frantic knocking woke me up. I opened the door to find James, unshaven and still in last night's clothes. "Victoria, please," he begged. "We need to talk." I let him in but kept my distance. "Did you come alone? Or is Claire waiting in the car?" He flinched. "It's over. I ended it last night. It was a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life." "A year-long mistake," I said flatly. His eyes widened. "You knew how long?" "I saw everything, James. The messages, the secret weekend trips you called business. Even the apartment you were looking at together." He collapsed into a chair. "It wasn't real. What Claire and I had. It was fantasy, not reality. And that makes it better." "No, of course not," he said. "But Victoria, 15 years. 15 years of building a life. You can't just throw that away." "I didn't," I said quietly. "You did. Every time you lied. Every time you chose her over me." "I'll do anything," he pleaded. "Therapy, full honesty, whatever you need." I studied him, this man I had loved for so long. I tried to see the man I married, but all I saw was someone who had deliberately chosen deceit. "What's really changed, James? You're not sorry you cheated. You're sorry you got caught." "That's not true," he said. "I've been carrying guilt every day. I was going to end it." "When?" asked sharply. "Before or after the trip to Cabo you booked next month? Before or after you moved into that apartment?" His face crumpled. "How can I fix this?" "You can't," I said simply. "Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. They can only be acknowledged and left behind." "You're really done with me?" he asked, disbelief in his voice. "Just like that?" "No, James. Not just like that. After a year of you being done with me while pretending everything was fine. After realizing the man I built my life around could carry on an affair and lie so easily. He tried another tactic. What about our friends? Our families? The embarrassment of divorce. Embarrassment. Cut in. That's what you're worried about. Your reputation. Our reputation, he corrected. We've built a life together. People respect us, James said. They look up to us. I let out a hollow laugh. Well, I've already taken care of that. I called your mother this morning. The color drained from his face. You didn't. I did. I also called your sister. And our friends Mark and Sarah. I told them exactly why I'm leaving you. You had no right, he snapped. No right to tell the truth. I replied calmly. I spent years helping you build your perfect image, James. But I won't be painted as the villain now. He stood up suddenly. This isn't over. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. Actually, I said, meeting his eyes. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in years. The locks will be changed by Monday. Take whatever you need from the house this weekend. You can't just kick me out of my own home. Our home, I corrected. The one I designed. The one I've helped pay for every month for 15 years. We'll figure out the financial details later. But I'm not the one leaving. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then quickly looked away. Is that Claire? Yes. Missing you already. His silence said everything. Go, I said gently. She needs you more than I do right now. After he left, I expected to feel empty. Instead, I felt something I hadn't in a long time, relief. Like I'd finally put down a heavy weight I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. My phone rang. It was Michael. I just wanted to check on you, he said. How are you holding up? Better than I thought I would, I said honestly. James came by. Claire's been calling me non-stop, he said. I haven't answered. What will you do? He sighed. I think I've known since last night. I deserve better than someone who can look me in the eye and lie for months. Yes, I said softly. You do. Have you had breakfast? He asked. I could really use a familiar face right now. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were puffy from crying, but they looked clearer, lighter. Breakfast sounds perfect, I said. The weeks that followed were a blur. Lawyers, mediators, dividing the life we'd built. James didn't leave quietly. He bounced between begging for forgiveness and blaming me for overreacting to one mistake. But I stayed firm, supported by a strength I didn't know I had. Claire moved away within a month, unable to face the social fallout in our close-knit community. According to mutual friends, James tried to continue the relationship, but the fantasy fell apart under the pressure of real life. Michael and I kept seeing each other, first as support during our divorces, then as genuine friends. We understood each other's pain in a way no one else could. I never thanked you properly, Michael said one evening, 6 months after that dinner at Arya. We were walking by the river, the summer sun turning the water gold. For what? For having the courage to speak the truth. For not looking the other way. Thought about that. I didn't feel brave at the time. Just desperate. Whatever you felt, you saved me from living a lie, he said. If it weren't for you, I might still be stuck pretending. It was strange how life's most painful moments could bring unexpected gifts. Through the end of my marriage, I found my own strength. I rebuilt my self-respect. I learned who my real friends were. Those who stayed without judgment. And I found Michael, not as a replacement for what I lost, but as something completely new. Are you happy, Victoria? He asked as we paused to watch a boat drift by. Not always, I answered honestly. Some days I still grieve the future I thought I'd have. He nodded, understanding. But mostly I'm grateful, I continued. Grateful for the truth, even though it hurt. Grateful for the chance to build something real, not just comfortable illusions. To truth then, he said, gently taking my hand. I thought about who I was a year ago, so sure of my life, yet blind to what was happening behind the scenes. I remembered the woman sobbing in that hotel room, thinking her world had ended. "You know what I learned from all of this?" said. "We're stronger than we think. When everything falls apart, we don't have to fall apart with it." Michael squeezed my hand. "No, we don't." A year after that dinner at Arya, I ran into James at a colleague's retirement party. He looked older, tired. We exchanged polite small talk, until he pulled me aside. "I never really apologized," he said quietly. "Not properly. I was too busy trying to protect myself. And now?" "Yes. Now I realize what I threw away," he said. "And I'm sorry, Victoria. Truly sorry." Surprisingly, I felt no bitterness. Just peace. "I hope you find happiness, James."